Hi everyone, my name is Gabriel and this is the Hour of the Raven, your channel for everything Ravenloft, RPG, Dungeons and Dragons, and horror.
Today we'll begin our studies on the Dread Doppelgangers, monsters capable of shape-changing their bodies to impersonate others, stealing their identities and memories. Although these creatures are classic Dungeons and Dragons villains, in the Ravenloft setting, the Dread Doppelgangers were created, monsters that became even more dangerous and threatening. The main book with information about these creatures is a book created by fans and available on the Fraternity of Shadows website. The Richten Society Archives Doppelgangers is the definitive guide to these creatures, featuring over 380 pages of rich material. Our next videos will be based on this book, and I will leave the link below in the video description where you can download it for free. This video will not focus on game mechanics, but will be directly inspired by the lore and history of these creatures in Ravenloft, mainly in this case on the fan material from the 3rd edition. If you play the 5th edition of Dungeons and Dragons, you'll see that there are some differences in the approach to doppelgangers, but this video can be a source of information or even inspiration for creating new and more dangerous villains for your campaign. In this video, we will explore the mysterious origins and their biology and life cycle. Are you ready? After exploring the dangerous tunnels of Timor and the mysteries of the metropolis of Peridon, we finally managed to find a passage on a boat that will take us to the Sea of Sorrows and the coast of the core. During the monotonous crossing of the mists, we take advantage of the time we have to delve deeper into the dossier of the Doppelgangers that we stole from the journalist William Thompson and discover the mystery about the feared Dread Doppelgangers.
Hour of the Raven.
The myth of the doppelganger can be found in different cultures around the world, where a supernatural manifestation takes on the form and appearance of another person, acting as a sinister and evil reflection of their persona. The figure of the doppelganger also finds reflections in literature. Dostoevsky's novel The Double, or Clive Barker's short story Human Remains, are excellent examples of how scary a doppelganger story can be. Other excellent examples can be found in movies, like the atmosphere of paranoia of movies like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. The word doppelganger has its origins in German folklore and means double and walker, and this nomenclature was also used to name the monsters created to haunt the game of Dungeons and Dragons. Over the years, in the D&D game, the figure of the doppelganger gained amorphous and alien features, which also resemble its characteristics to the modern mythology of grey aliens, exploring another aspect of the fear of the unknown. In the Ravenloft setting, the doppelganger also received a reinterpretation, becoming more dangerous and threatening to the Dread Doppelgangers. It will be about these sinister creatures that we'll talk about in this video. But where did these monstrosities came from? It is possible to trace an origin to these species of monsters, capable of bleeding into any other society. For many years, this question has been the subject of heated debate among scholars and monster hunters of the Richten Society, but there is still no definitive answer to this question. If scientific answers and philosophies seem to elude researchers, there is no doubt that in the Land of the Mists, the domain of Zerisha contained the largest number of these monsters, infiltrated in their human society. Even the presence of these monsters in other distant lands can often be marked in time by the date on which Zerisha was swallowed by the mists, a strong indication that this place has also exported its horrors to other lands. One of the most popular theories regarding the origins of doppelgangers is that these creatures appeared through a faulty alchemical process capable of generating life. This thesis argues that the doppelganger race emerged in alchemic laboratories, an unholy mixture of magic and science, resulting from the defective creation of an alchemical children. Defenders of this theory see several similarities between the constructs called alchemical children that have limited sentience with the doppelgangers. Despite the intellectual limitations of these constructs, many alchemical masters develop ways to refine their creations, improving their intellect and independence, and an accident in an experiment may have created a race of doppelgangers. Some similar characteristics between the alchemical children and the doppelganger, such as their protean body, their psychic abilities, and the inherent energy of their blood and bodily fluids, can offer curious parallels between these creations. These similarities are superficial, however. Further studies demonstrate that doppelgangers are vulnerable in their bodies to various physical effects that not usually affect animated constructs, and the psychic ability of doppelgangers appears to be unrestricted, while alchemical children only connect their minds with their own creators. Finally, no construct or artificial form of life can ever reproduce itself by biological means, a circumstance that involves the life cycle of doppelgangers, which take away the validity of this theory. Another theory that also involves a dark side of scientific knowledge is the biological manipulation of species. Supporters of this theory believe that doppelgangers were also created in laboratories, but not through alchemical constructs, but through the use of biotechnology on pre-existing species. Could these monsters be derived from experiments to create a creature capable of infiltrating any society? Considering the philosophy and religion that permeates the Richten Society, which values the human race above all others, could this race have been created for the purpose of being servants or slaves to the human race? Or, on the contrary, would they be the epitome of the experiments to encompass the very essence of humanity? A creature capable of translating any and all human forms and mentally connecting with their minds. Some biologists who support this theory even claim that the reproduction cycle of the doppelganger indicates that it may not be completely dissociated from the human form. If this experiment was conducted by some heretical order of the divinity of mankind, it is evident that such an experiment must be considered a failure, as such creatures currently see themselves as totally dissociated from mankind, and see humans as no more than pawns in their games of intrigue and betrayal. Another theory about the origins of doppelgangers is that of the evolved parasite. This theory has gained followers among those who experiment with the blood and bodily fluids of doppelgangers, since these fluids appears in some way animated, having slight ripples and even being capable of moving small distance when in contact with fire or another threat to its integrity. Many see a parallel between this behavior of a doppelganger's bodily fluids and the creature known as the impersonator, a monster with an ooze-like appearance and an animalistic mind, and which, upon coming into contact with a victim's blood, can alter its body to assume the form of its victims for a short period of time. Some scholars point out that doppelgangers could be a strange evolution and symbiosis of this parasite with human bodies. This evolution would have occurred through the contamination of humans' blood and bodily fluids with an impersonator, and now man and creature are inseparable, becoming a doppelganger. Finally, there are those who argue that the origins of doppelganger comes from distant worlds, outside the land of the mists, and that these creatures are as much a prisoner of this demiplane as any other individual. Those who defend these theories claim that there are reports of these monsters coming from travelers who have recently arrived in the mists, and that in distant lands, some of them are even accepted into society, and are called changelings. These theories, if accepted, do not clarify anything about the origin, but there are significant differences between changelings and doppelgangers from other lands and those found in the Land of the Mists, which is why many consider that those who inhabit the demiplane of Dread are a distinctive race and call them Dread Doppelgangers. Perhaps the truth about the origin of these creatures will never be completely known, but the recent experiments have revealed a lot about their biology. Although they are masters of disguise, these creatures have a true form, which becomes evident whenever they are dead, or when, for some reason, they become completely unconscious and unable to maintain their transformation. After the recent and bombastic revelation of the presence of these creatures in the Richten Society, there have already been a few opportunities in which coroners have been able to examine and dissect their bodies by studying their grotesque anatomy in detail. A doppelganger's body is humanoid and appears asexual, and is covered in smooth ash-gray skin that shines as if coated in oil but feels like soft dry leather. Only around the eyes and knuckles do wrinkles appear to form with age, allowing identification of an elderly doppelganger. No hair of any kind can be found, as well as no freckles or scars. The fingers and toes are conical and have no nails. Both arms, the face and the mouth are disproportionately elongated. This section of their bodies reveal that their skeletons are not so rigid, but have malleable points and cartilage plates, allowing flexibility, expansion and compression. These creatures have no signs of sexual organs or apparent gender, nor does this section of the pelvic cavity reveal the presence of any reproductive organs, although they do have urinary ducts, and they also do not have nipples or navels. The oral and digestive anatomy is surprisingly simplified, with short intestines and a small stomach. They have only 20 superficial pointed teeth like those of a carnivore, but with fragile roots, revealing that they are poorly adapted to eating in their natural form. Their internal organs are often compact, with small hearts that give them a heartbeat distinct from the human heartbeat. Its blood is not driven only by the heart, however, and it seems to have a spirit and life of its own that drives its circulation. Their faces are long, with thin lips, deep eye sockets, nasal sockets and elongated skulls. The skin of their faces reveal muscles that are much more complex than human ones, allowing them to emulate different facial features. Their tracheae have a complex system of vocal cords, which allow them to speak different tones of voice. Their eyes are deeply recessed, small and monochromatic, with no distinction between its iris and pupils. Their eyes and skin have pigment sacs that allow them to change colors whenever they wish. The brain is the size of a human brain, but with great distinction. Some of the areas appear to be overdeveloped, and perhaps this explains the development of their psychic abilities, or the enhanced muscular control of these creatures. Perhaps the most striking feature of its brain is the metamorphosis gland, a part of the brain that appears to be decisive for changing its shape. Doppelgangers who have this gland removed will be unable to transform, and arcane and alchemical studies demonstrate great mystical utility for this organ. Perhaps it is some damage or disease to this gland that affect the infamous Sodo, the Dark Lord of Peridon, who seems to be incapable of maintaining his physical form for more than a brief period, and is always constantly changing his form. But what is the life cycle of these creatures like? Perhaps one of the most disturbing characteristics of doppelgangers is the fact that they reproduce with humans to create new monstrosities. For reproduction, a doppelganger can assume the male or female form of some humanoid race, and they are not able to reproduce in their natural true form. Assuming an identity of another race, they then seduce or trick a victim. Generally, doppelgangers prefer to assume male form for reproduction. They do not act on any impulse or desire, and coldly calculate which family they wish to infiltrate their offspring into. After getting a partner pregnant, they move away from the mother and just follow the development of the pregnancy and the child from a distance. A doppelganger may also choose to carry a pregnancy in her female form. In this case, she will carry the child in her womb, and in the first months, she will not be able to assume a form incompatible with gestation, such as that of a male figure, or even a female figure who is too young or too old to carry the child. After 2 months, she will temporarily lose her ability to transform, and will suffer from great weakness until she gives birth to the doppelganger child. Reproduction is always done with members of other races, as reproduction between 2 doppelgangers is a taboo, and it generates a gaunt, a monstrous and bloodthirsty offspring. Even though 2 doppelgangers assume male and female form respectively, the offspring generated from their reproduction seem to inherit only the monstrous side of their parents, and the gaunt are a dangerous aberration. These monsters are insane and exude psychic waves of madness. Whenever they try to assume other forms, they have distorted aspects like Caliban's. Unable to feed properly due to their digestive system, they need to feed on blood and bodily fluids, and attack humans and doppelgangers alike for this purpose. The creation of this monster is prohibited, and Sodo orders that all gaunts to be hunted down and destroyed. A doppelganger fetus still has its true natural shape until about 5 months, when it instinctively assumes a humanoid form similar to that of its human parent. Once a doppelganger is born, it is usually raised by a human family, who are unaware of the child's nature. Its inhuman nature, however, can be perceived by some signs. Although they cannot change their shape yet, their bodies are quite flexible and athletic. Children seem to sleep a lot in their early years, and little by little, as they get older, they start to sleep less and less, to the point of insomnia, when they stop to sleep at all. The child is not aware of his diverse nature, but he often develops peculiar habits, being quite precocious and intelligent, and curious about other people's behaviors to the point of being nosy. In their relationships, young doppelgangers prove to be skilled liars and manipulators, which is perhaps amplified by an incipient psychic ability. The lack of basic sexual drives means that young doppelgangers show no interest in the opposite sex during puberty. One of the most important and dangerous phases of a doppelganger's life is the phase known as the awakening. This period usually occurs around puberty and begins with the doppelganger's discovery of their ability to probe people's minds for their thoughts, emotions, and impulses. Generally uncontrolled, this ability begins as a cacophony of intrusive talks in their minds until the young doppelganger manages to establish some sort of control. Their first transformation are usually not very far from the discovery of this psychic ability. Generally quick and driven by situations of great emotional upheaval, the young doppelganger usually transforms into someone who is the object of his envy for brief moments. Little by little, these transformations become more frequent, and it becomes clear to the doppelganger that he is not similar to his family of creation. At this time, fearing to reveal their own nature, it is very common for doppelgangers to leave their childhood home, following their lives alone, sometimes on the streets and in precarious situations. After the awakening, young doppelgangers who survive this ordeal are often approached by more experienced members of their race. Some may be accompanied by their doppelganger parent from a distance, or by members who intend to shelter in their clan. The approach of these mentors is usually full of mind games. They read the minds of their apprentice, adopting forms that appeal to their ideals, confidence, and emotions, to get closer before revealing themselves to be of the same nature. The mentoring relationship is not guided by feelings of affection, and education often takes place in cruel and violent ways, and with dangerous tests to be accepted in their clans. Initiation into Doppelganger society involves abandoning any trace of one's humanity, and the murders of victims to take their identity permanently are common rites of passage. Upon reaching adulthood, a doppelganger is usually in dominance of his own supernatural abilities, and fully involved in the dangerous power games of his race clans. As his age advances, his powers and gifts become even stronger, and his ability to alter his bodies appears to alleviate the bodily effects of old age. In the past, elders were revered as leaders in Zerisha, but since Sodo's rise to power, the seniority criteria have ceased to be used as hierarchy, and power struggles have become violent. Although their life expectancy is very similar to that of a normal human, it is currently very uncommon for a doppelganger to reach old age, and most of them die violently, either at the hands of hunters or in the violent internal conflicts of their society. Upon death, their bodies immediately return to their true form, and doppelgangers themselves are quickly to eliminate any body of their peers, protecting the collective secret of their existence. Incinerations, concealment of corpses, and other methods that do not observe any ceremony of funeral rite are used to hide their bodies. As our vessels bravely traverse the mistways that connect Peridon to the Sea of Sorrows, we delve deeper into the origin and biology of the monstrous Dread Doppelgangers that infiltrate society. However, the dossier we are studying is far from finished, and there are still many sinister details to be uncovered. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and in the next video we will explore the mysteries that surround the minds and society of these creatures.